my reading nook. Today we're gonna be here discussing my July reading wrap up. So yeah, I'm here and I just showed you a clip of me making this tea. It is coconut and black decaf tea because it's already pretty late at night, so I didn't want to drink coffee right now, but it is one of my greatest, like my favorite tea combinations, and I would recommend it a lot. I'll put the instructions down below. But yeah, basically I kind of just want to have like a cozy, it's nighttime, I'm in my pajamas kind of reading wrap-ups, because that's kind of what wrapping up books for me is. So yeah, I wanted to start with my first book of the month. So I read 7 books this month, but I'm in the middle of 2 more books. So I am going to discuss them because I am more than 75% done with them, and I don't want to not include them because it feels relevant right now. So yeah, I'm going to include them, and I'll tell you where I am in the book so you know how far along I was and if I'm missing like any big twists that might change my opinion on the book. But the first book that I read was Beach Read by Emily Henry. So I loved this book. I gave it 4 stars, but I was a little disappointed when I read it because this cover made me think that it was gonna be the perfect, like very, like, I don't know, heartfelt, very like nice, comfy romance book to read at the beach. So I was like, yeah, perfect, I'll grab this. And it happened to be a very hard-hitting, like, contemporary book. Like, I know, like, even in this book itself, like Emily Henry has like a little jab at herself because she's saying how a lot of people think that romance authors only write sappy romances, but they actually have a lot of like hard-hitting, like female contemporary. So I think this is more like a woman contemporary, or just like a contemporary novel by itself. But it did tackle some very deep topics. In this book, this girl basically just lost her father, and her father actually happened to have a double life. He was cheating on his mom. He had a whole house with this other woman, and when she discovers this after he passes away, she's like very distraught by this, and this especially affects her life because she's a romance author, and her whole life is about believing in true love. And when she doesn't believe in true love anymore because her parents were like her biggest inspiration, so that is like, oh wow, like shocking. And then she goes to her dad's childhood home to try to sell it because she's like strapped for cash. And there she meets a guy that she happens to have a connection with and some chemistry, and things go along. But honestly, this book is a lot more than just a romance novel. It has some cultish like things going on. It also has a lot of like background on both of the characters. It had a lot of depth. It's a lot about forgiveness and just forgiving people that were imperfect and how to move past that. So I think this is a great book. I gave it 4 stars, but yeah, definitely if you're in the mood for a hard-hitting contemporary, pick this one up. It is not a beachy read like I thought it was gonna be. The next book I read it in audio, so I'm gonna put it right here. So this is the only one left by Riley Sager. This is the Book Troop and the Literally Dead Book Club pick of the month. And I am part of both of those book clubs, so I really enjoy reading this. The live show for the Book Troop has happened already, but not for the Literally Dead Book Club. So I think it'll be very interesting to see what other people thought about this book. Because when I first read it, I was absolutely shocked. I loved it. I loved the atmosphere. So this book is about a woman. It takes place in the 1980s, and it has flashbacks to the 1920s. So in the time frame in the 1980s, this woman just recently is going through some hard times with her job because she was like, she's a nurse, not a nurse, she's a caretaker, and she was accused of medical malpractice, and she was cleared, but when she kind of like lost her reputation, so she's trying to take any job she can get, and the job that she could get was one taking care of this woman who the town all thinks murdered her entire family. And this is all set up very creepily in a very atmospheric read about this old house. And this woman can only type in a typewriter. So there's a lot of like typing and a lot of like who's moving, kind of like, is this house haunted type of vibes. And I love that. And then you also get like little snippets of the 1920s where you're trying to see whether or not this woman actually killed her entire family or not, whether or not she's guilty. And this book has the most twists I've ever seen in a book. It basically has like 5 separate twists. And that's my main problem with it, because I think if this book had ended after the 3rd twist, it would have been perfect. It would have been a 5 out of 5, rock my world type of book. But because like Riley Sager keeps trying to upend himself, I read this other book by him, which is Survive the Night, and I'll put it right here. But that book was too much. It definitely like felt like he was just trying to jump scare you with twists. This one was a lot more contained. It was a lot better in my opinion, but it was still, he still has some of those tendencies. So yeah, I really recommend that book. I think it's a really fun time. I read it in a day because I couldn't put it down, but it'll be polarizing whether or not you like where it ends up going, because it is all over the place. I'll tell you that. Like, it really takes you everywhere, whether you want to go or not. Next book, it is Love in the Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson. This was my blind date with a book pick. So I posted this video already where my boyfriend Joey goes and picks up a book from this like blind date with a book kind of thing that our bookstore has. I'll put it right here really quick. And yeah, so basically I didn't have any idea what this book was. And from the synopsis, I thought it was going to be a cozy mystery. And it ended up being a very sappy romance novel. Honestly, I think that this book is basically this book, but watered down. So this book is basically a woman just lost her father, shocker, and she has to move into her childhood, into the house where her father was living, same, and she has to like clear it out so she can sell it. So it's basically the same thing. And then her neighbor happens to be a mysterious man that she at the beginning really dislikes, but then ends up actually enjoying and having some chemistry with and shenanigans. The thing with this one versus this one is that this one is just kind of like a rom-com montage kind of situation where they're all very happily and bubbly and they fight a little, but like nothing really serious. It's very mellow, it's very happy. So I think this one is actually a really good one if you want something like this but a little bit lighter. But honestly, I did give this one 3 stars because it does not deserve to be at the level of this one. But it is a little bit more enjoyable for what I was looking at in the moment. So yeah, I like both of them. They're both really good contemporary romances, but one is a little bit better than the other. Okay, so the next book I read was The Last Hour. I'll put it right here. This one is a book about this 3 perspectives. There's a woman who's recovering from being kidnapped and tortured, and she just wants to be left alone. This police officer, this normal guy that just lost his dad out of nowhere. He has no idea where he is. He went missing. And then this woman who lost her daughter, and she was like a teenager, runaway. Everybody thinks that she was up to no good, and they all have to team up together to find their missing family members. And this book is one of those, again, you can read it in a day. It's very fast paced. It is set in a Connecticut town, so it has those like beachy summertime vibes. And it is one of those towns where everybody knows each other, but they've been having this problem where people keep going missing. And I think it's a good book. I think the fact that one of the POVs was included spoiled it for me, just because I thought the people should have known the mystery the entire time. I'm not gonna spoil it, but I was confused when I discovered what the mystery was, because I was like, how did they not know? They had like all the information. Unless they're like the stupidest human being in the planet, they should have known what was going on since the very beginning. So that kind of spoiled it for me, but the book itself is fine. It's like a 3-star like mystery, but I think it goes by really quickly, and it really has a good atmosphere to it. So probably one of my least favorites, definitely my least memorable read of the month, because I feel like that's the one that I kept forgetting that I read, which is kind of crazy because you spend so much time with a book for just to forget about it later, but that happens to me a lot. So now we continue with my most controversial read of the month, Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. So this book I would say is controversial because I know a lot of people love it and I don't dislike it. I think it has a lot of merit, but I don't love it as much as other people do. And the summary of this book, I should have sat on something because I'm really short, but the summary of this book is that this woman is trying to publish her book. She's an author. Her name is, I think is Rachel. What is her name? Oh no, her name is June. I'm terrible with names. So her name is June and she's trying to publish her book. And she's getting rejected left and right. She's like a young white woman. And she happens to be very good friends with Athena, which is already a very well-established, kind of sort of famous author. And she's already writing her like 4th book. She's been a bestseller. She has, in June's opinion, everything handed to her. But one day when they were hanging out, Athena happens to pass away in very convenient circumstances. This all is, again, not spoilers, but I will not spoil how she dies. But yeah, so Athena passes away and June happens to be in the room where her new manuscript was just sitting in the table. And because Athena is a very secretive author, June knows that nobody else has written that manuscript. So she knows that she can pass it off as her own. And possibly, I don't know, become a bestseller. And since it's an unfinished manuscript, she kind of convinces herself that by finishing it, she's kind of like saving the memory of Athena. And then she just kind of spirals because that's a big lie and she has to keep a lot of secrets and she keeps having to re-emphasize to everybody around her that she's not lying, and that kind of drives her a little crazy. So yeah, I think this book has a lot of good things to say about the publishing industry, especially like a lot of the behind the scenes that I'm not an author. I have no intention of ever becoming an author. I have very little knowledge of the publishing industry, but this was very interesting to see how difficult it can be. But it also tried to tackle a lot of like the problem that is white authors writing minority stories and literally like stealing from the minorities to write their stories, and seeing the morality of it all, whether or not it's okay to do, where should we draw the line. So I was trying to answer all those questions. Where I think the book kind of missed the mark for me is that it took itself too seriously when it came to the commentary of the publishing industry, and it didn't go deep enough in the commentary. It kind of stayed surface level. Like it was just throwing jabs at the publishing industry without actually trying to talk about it, like open a conversation, like really go into depth about any of them. Because like June just happened to be like the worst white person. Like I know that white people have historically done a lot of bad things, but June was really like just like a mouthpiece saying all these things that were kind of like, okay, but like who acts like that? Like it's a lot. And then Athena just happened to be perfect, and she also had no flaws. So I thought that dynamic was not the best. But then where it really lost me was, I think it was just how it happened to try to be a mystery and a thriller as well, and I don't think that was well made. It was very chaotic and it was very out of nowhere, and I think the motivations were there, but how everything went down, I don't think it was a good payoff. But I do think this is a good book. It's an important book. I think it will be interesting to discuss in like a book club or something. But I think in a couple of years when we have more books like it, because this is a good book to open doors, but I do think more books have to come after it to really open up the conversation and reach those deeper topics that I think we're missing from this book. So I think I give it 3 stars, but it's not a bad book. I think it's really worth it. Okay, so my next book is A History of Wild Places. I'll put it right here. So this book is the one about the cup. That's what I'm meaning. When you read a lot of mysteries a month, you kind of get them all mixed up. But this book is about a cop who has the ability of like being able to tell a lot of things about a person by touching an item, like seeing their past. And he gets tasked with going out and finding a woman that went missing. And everybody thinks that this woman went missing in a it's not a cult. It's like when she just wanted to escape and she went to live in the woods, basically. with other people, and he doesn't know where she is, so he wants to go into looking for her. And that's like the first like 20 pages of the book. And then he also happens to like just like never, then you kind of drop that POV whatsoever. Now you're following the people in this cult. So now you're following the people that are actually in the cult, and there's a lot of things going on. There are a lot of perspectives going on, and I think it's very interesting because I love a good cultish like book, and I think it was done very well. The atmosphere in this book was off the charts. You were following this like people that were like brainwashed in the cult and just trying to like navigate their day by day, but they have like no technology, and they're all afraid of this sickness that is coming from the woods, so they don't want to go and rejoin the normal world because they think the normal world is not there anymore. So yeah, I definitely think this book like has the atmosphere, and then the twist is amazing if you don't see it coming. It's horrendous if you see it coming. Apparently this book is about 50-50 split. Some people don't see the twist coming, and other people can see it from a mile away. And I just happened to be in that camp where I couldn't see it coming, so I really enjoyed it. But again, like I think Books and Lala, which is one of my favorite booktubers, she was like, oh, I could see the twist coming from a mile away. This book was boring as all hell. So yeah, I happened to be in a camp that I did not see the twist coming. I blame it on the fact that I was reading this book as an audiobook when I was doing something else. So I was like maybe not paying full attention, but I didn't see it coming, and I think it's great. My only complaint is that maybe the cult leader wasn't as sympathetic and as dynamic as I wanted him to be. You kind of join the story when the cult leader is already going a little crazy, so I wish we had some scenes of him being like an actual cult leader to get really engaged with him and engaged with the story and actually believe why these people will follow him blindly. And it'll make a lot of like because a lot of their decisions are just because they're brainwashed. And you're like, why are you brainwashed when this guy is just an asshole? So yeah, I wanted to see more of that, like him being a very dynamic leader to actually believe that he would be capable of doing something like this. So yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It's good. Not great, but good. And if you don't see the twist coming, it will be great. Okay. So the last book I read this month was A Psalm of the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. Becky Chambers is my favorite cozy science fiction author that is currently publishing. I do love Isaac Asimov. I think his books are over there. But yeah, I do love him, and I do have all his books. But I think Becky Chambers is the best one in the game publishing right now. And this book is just a very, very short little novella about a tea monk, which is probably the coziest profession. So he just goes around from town to town serving tea to people. And this happens in you don't even know if it's Earth because they don't call it Earth, but it's an Earth-like planet where people got to the point where they were doing too much industrial processing to the point that the planet was dying, and they were putting a lot of the work into robots instead of doing the work the humans themselves. And one day the robots just happened to become sentient, and when they did that, they decided, the humans kind of asked the robots, do you want to keep working for us? And the robots say, no, we want nothing to do with you. We are going to just go into the woods and never see you again. And the humans kind of had to pick up the pieces and rebuild society to be a more ecologically like sound society where you kind of fix a lot of those problems of global warming. So you're in this society where a lot of the problems that we currently have, like global warming and industrialization and forced labor, were fixed. But this monk that lives in this perfect society and has the perfect job where he just gets to drink tea and talk to people every day is unhappy. So he goes into the woods trying to find a purpose, just whatever his next purpose is. And he thinks that he should have a purpose. He doesn't know why he's unhappy. And I think this is where this book really strikes a nerve for a lot of people, because a lot of people just feel like they are unhappy even though nothing is wrong. And I think that is like something that we can all learn from this book, that sometimes it's okay to feel unhappy. It's okay to just not be perfect, and it's okay to stop trying to fix yourself. Because we live in a society where we're all trying to improve all the time instead of just like sitting down and reflecting and just like letting it go and enjoying the moment. So yeah, this is a perfect book, I think, in my opinion. It's a 5 out of 5 read. I loved it with all my heart. This is kind of where my heart lies though. It's cozy science fiction. I'll give most cozy science fictions 5 out of 5 if they do it well. So yeah, I already have this book purchased. I want to purchase it because this is a library copy, and they have a second book, so I'm already gonna read it pretty soon. I'm getting tired of talking, so I'm just gonna do the last two, and I'm doing a blog where I read these books, and I also have Yellowface in that blog as well, because I'm reading TikTok Made Me Read books. And obviously we have Icebreaker on this, which is a spicy novel that has been taken booked up by storm, because it is basically about Anastasia and Nathan. Anastasia is a skater. Nathan is a hockey player. They just happen to have to share an arena because of some shenanigans, and they just have the craziest tension and the craziest chemistry I've ever seen in a book. Like, it was just like, I was like giddy. I was like laughing. I was like, I want them to get together so bad. I felt like I was like 13 again, reading my first romance. And I am very susceptible to romances. I'm the type of person that if somebody kissed on the TV, I would close my eyes till I was like well into my 20s, honestly. So yeah, so I am very susceptible to that. And this gives me all those vibes. And they also have some really good spicy scenes. So I have this much left. I read all of this, and my only complaint is that, does a romance need to be this long? No, it really doesn't. Like, you could really have done with like 200 less pages, but I'm not gonna complain because I love these people. I love these characters, but definitely not enough is going on that makes me wanna keep reading it when I'm not in the mood. So that's kind of why I'm going a little slow with this one. And then the last one I'm reading, and this one's also going to be part of the blog, so I'm not going to say a lot about it, but I'm reading Fourth Wing. And this is the book of the moment. You know, there's always a book of a moment, and this just happens to be it. And this book is about a girl. I'm going to call her a girl because I don't know how to pronounce anybody's names, because I have not been reading this. I have not been listening to this as an audiobook, so I don't know how to pronounce their names. But basically, she is the daughter of a general in the army, and this happens to be taking place in a very brutal world where like there's constant war. Everybody has to be constricted into the army, and the daughter of this general just happens to be very weak. She has some sort of disability that makes her bones very brittle. They don't really specify what disability she has, but yeah, basically she has a disability that makes her bones pretty brittle, and she was always thinking that she was gonna go into being a scribe, because that's kind of like what she is. But this book has like several different fields you can go into. Kind of like scribe, you can be like kind of like a medic, you can be kind of like a front lines kind of army, or you can be a writer. And a writer is the most dangerous thing you can be, because you have to go through the Writer Academy, which happens to be brutal, and most people die when they go into the Writer Academy. It's like kind of crazy. You have to go through all these challenges, but if you survive, you get a dragon. And this book just happens to be about how her mom actually forces her into the Writer Academy, and she doesn't think she's gonna make it. But you know, it's a YA book. Some girl power things are gonna happen. And this book just brought me back to what it was when I was reading, kind of like the Hunger Games, Divergent. So I actually wrote down this because I think it's really interesting, because I've been writing down what this book reminds me of, because it reminds me of like 10 different books. So I said that it had Divergent type challenges for survival. It has the Shadow and Bones powers. Like they have powers, and it has similar power like the powers, they have similar rules. And then it also has the Shadow and Bone type romance in it. Then it has the dragons kind of behave like the dragons in the Priory of the Orange Tree. And I'm going to put all those books here, so I'm going to move my book. And then the school setting and dynamics remind me of the Ember in the Ashes, because that has like a general mother, it has a school that is brutal, it has like constant murder, kind of that dynamic. And then it has the Hunger Games brutality, and then it has also the Hunger Games type of like girl power, like a girl that nobody thought it was good enough going into that and being like a badass bitch. So yeah, so this book actually, I think it's so popular because it just reminds us all of all those other books that we already loved. And it does it really well. So yeah, I am almost done with this book. I am like 50 pages from the end, and it's really not disappointed me so far. So yeah, you can hear all my thoughts in that reading blog though. Oof, that was a long one. All the books are on the floor now. I am tired. I'm gonna go to bed because it's already 11 o'clock at night. And I hope you enjoyed my reading. July reading wrap up. I will probably keep reading as many books in as many genres as I want and as I can handle, and hopefully you'll come in this journey with me. Okay, bye. Say bye to the reading nook. Bye, reading nook. Bye.